welcome to
Yeah.
the show. We continue to have an international audience. I love the fact that we can share these type of stories with an international crowd, because with COVID, as I've said before, doesn't matter age, race, location, we've all had to work from home. So Alexander, tell us where you're sitting and how did you make it through last year?
Yeah, it's very nice to meet you, Darren. I'm actually here in Helsinki, Finland. It's actually probably now much better here in Helsinki than it was during 2020.
Yeah.
The worst point was probably actually beginning of 2021. But now most of the limitations are lifted, and there are still some minor restrictions. But overall, I think we are in a good shape now.
It is a town and a country I've never been, but it's actually one of the places I want to go. And whenever the Winter Olympics spin up, I always really want to get to your little neck of the woods.
That's true.
The athletes and what I see on TV, it's a very special place. You know, when we think about how big the world is and how we can share this story of having to work from home, having to worry about family members, having to do what you can to just stay healthy. You know, you just don't know where this pandemic was going to hit, how to get it. And I think through this, a lot of people spent this time reflecting and upskilling. And that's my next question to you that we always love to talk about. What did you do to better yourself since you've been sitting at home for so long? Like, and we hear all different things, but by sharing this, I think our audience feels connected.
Well, I guess, of course, 2020 was a difficult year for me, as for many other people. But in fact, it actually might have been a little bit easier for me for a number of reasons. Reason number one is that I'm actually used to work from home for like a number of years. And I've been also visiting the office, but I actually started my remote work back in like 2010. So it's a decade of experience working from home every now and then. So that helped a lot, of course. I have all the required equipment and all the setup I need to actually focus and be productive at home. So from that standpoint, that was not too much of an issue. Second thing that helped a lot is how Finland as a country actually handled COVID. Because as opposed to many other places around the world, Finland has never had these kind of super tight restrictions.
Yep.
So there were no limitations on how you can actually leave your building or walk around. And because the population density is not that high, and many people actually live in a countryside, it actually helped a lot to actually mitigate the COVID situation. And also, Finland has one of the highest percentage of people working remotely. It's these days it's almost half of. It's almost half of working population actually works remotely, and that also helped because people were able to actually move to working from home without losing their income. That's actually a big thing. So I guess overall Finland was a pretty safe place to be over 2020. And I guess the healthcare system also helped quite a lot. Fortunately, I wasn't affected by the virus, so stayed safe as well as my family. So that also helped a lot.
Same. I never liked shaking hands, so if I don't have to shake hands anymore, I'd be happy with that.
That's a very valid point. And actually, for me, as actually for some other people here in Finland, keeping social distance is very natural. It's in the culture. So I guess for me, it was pretty easy also.
I mean, I think all of our listeners can appreciate when you meet up with someone and you shake his or her hand and they're like, oh, I just came off of a cold. Or I shake the hand like, I think I'm catching a cold. I'm like, if you pre-COVID, if you think, I would always hate shaking someone's hand because it's always like, oh, my kids are sick. So I think for me, the world understands the importance of washing hands. I think that's a big one. The world understands like maybe we don't have to handshake. So I think these are some positives. I think one of the things we also talk about, and this is a weird riff, but it's a way to get to machine learning.
Mm-hmm.
An interesting outcome of COVID has been non-data scientists, just let's call it non-data enthusiasts, Now, when they read articles about COVID, I believe they read the article and then they really look at the data. They
Right.
really, and I was on a show the other day where we're saying people now understand the term "are not," right? And I mean that is something, we're going to bend the curve, and I think that's been nice that people who maybe have not had that type of vocabulary because they're not maybe data scientists, they can read the articles and form their own opinion. I didn't know if you have any thoughts on like in that riff of people are just getting smart about asking questions. They want to see the data. They're not afraid of the data. Then carry on to that. Let's talk about machine learning and how to improve the data. So there's kind of a 1-2 punch there.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty important change. Actually, I think it's actually bigger than just numbers. Of course, numbers is a big thing here.
Yep.
So everyone wanted to know the trends in the number of infected people and number of recovering people, and now the vaccination rates and so on. So numbers became essential. But what's more important than that, I think, is that actually people got into this kind of information era where they actually had to follow a lot of different information streams and had to be able to process and stream the information to actually filter out fake information or try to figure out the truth. So work with sources, and I guess that is a big leap and a big change. You don't only read an article now. You actually go and prove to find a proof for the numbers and for the data and for the statements that were made in a given article or newspaper. And I think that's a very big change. And then, of course, people are now, again, many people have actually added all the COVID data sites or dashboards to their bookmarks and started, watching the trends. And of course, and that's a big one. Now people do understand the difference between average, mean, and they do understand how
totally
different
agree.
Numbers can be interpreted. So that's a big one.
I totally agree. And I think the speed at which you can see those charts changing and how you can scroll in on them and be interactive on them, there's a lot of work that gets done behind the scenes to get that to a friendly place so everyone can understand the data. I think that to me has been a positive of what has come out of this, is that people really asking first for the data. But then now you have all this data, and it's not just even about COVID data. Now it's just like there's data everywhere. I think everyone's now been educated on that. You have the data. I think when we go up the ladder, and let's say it's cleaned and you have everything, we know we have to do things like that. But are there any cool like machine learning use cases that you're seeing or what you want to talk about or you want to educate everybody about? I mean, your floor, I'm going to just lay up a question of like, let's just talk ML models. Like, where do you want to go with that?
Well, in terms of, I've been actually working in a few pretty interesting cases during the COVID period.
Okay.
Some of those actually included the COVID studies, but I would like to probably start with the fact that there is a big gap between the actual data science and how public actually views it. Because if you think about what happened when COVID situation started, a lot of different articles popped up with some sort of studies. I remember that within the first couple of months, I was reading articles, for example, about machine learning models that were able to diagnose COVID based on coughing, for example, right? And we've heard a lot of these types of stories, but none of those ended up being true. None of those actually passed through the any sort of validity tests. And I guess the big issue with machine learning and artificial intelligence world these days is that there is a lot of hype going on around it, and often people want to ride the hype instead of trying to actually bring the value. And that happened a lot, I guess, during the COVID period. However, I should say that machine learning is here for a reason, and it's here to stay because there are all sorts of very interesting practical problems that are being solved by machine learning methods. And there are lots of interesting problems in medicine. There are lots of interesting problems in healthcare, but there are also very interesting things that I've been actually able to work on.
Can you share maybe just at a high level some things that you're working on?
Yeah, I think one of the topics that keeps me awake and keeps me kind of excited is the transition of user interfaces from like traditional complex software to a more user-friendly ones that people can actually use on the go. And as much as we are now used to like all sorts of mobile applications and websites, I actually see that more and more voice assistants and chatbots are being used in different use cases. And that was one of the main topic for me during the 2020, as we've been actually building a system that assists people working remotely now all of a sudden, those people that are not used to working remotely, building chatbots that can actually help them in their working environment.
And is that something we can plug on the show and have our users download, or do you need to be a big company, small company? How can our users test it or be part of it?
We actually are inviting now more and more users to test it. You have to be a company to do that, or
okay.
Alternatively, it doesn't make sense. But for companies that have so-called disconnected employees, people that are not sitting in front of the computers throughout the day, our system actually is a great help, because we actually help these people to navigate through these complex environments and complex workplace setups. So that's what we do. And in terms of machine learning, there is a lot of struggles, because you have to actually build a chatbot that's not just answering a few questions, but actually has to process like thousands of different issues that contains, the problematics of text classification and the natural language processing, and that is a big challenge. And we do see a lot of progress with the big companies like Amazon and Google and Apple all have their assistants. But now, how do we as a small company actually still achieve results here is a big question.
One of our sponsors, Pandio, they have a new tool, Pandio ML. So I'll connect you with that team, and they're doing some cool stuff on open source. So I think you're right. This whole ML journey is a long one, and you have big enterprise already doing it. How do you hit mid and small? So there's a huge opportunity. Yeah, no, this is great. You're in a town, in a country that I want to visit. I don't know when, but now I know when I go there, I won't be alone. We will be having a drink.
Absolutely.
And
you're going to be welcome.
Yeah. And Sam, I'm in Miami. So if you come down to Miami, you have a friend here as well.
Fantastic. I've been there a couple of times. It's
now,
really nice.
Now make sure we'll connect. All right. Well, listen, thank you for being on the show. You're a wonderful guest. And these conversations make my day, because again, there is the isolation, and it's good to speak to another human, not a bot. So this has been a great show.
Absolutely. Thanks, Devin.
Thanks for being on the show. We are the Data Standard, and we're sponsored by Pandio.